This is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network, now in its 7th year. Talk like you've never heard it before.
This is Alex. Yeah, and this is the Ramble. And we go until midnight tonight from the East Coast of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, here he is. The famous, the well-known, the star that is Larry Bubbles Brown.
Those are all words that don't describe me at all.
They don't describe you at all. Oh, well. How you doing, Larry?
Good, good. I know you just had a surgery battle, so I was anxious to hear about that.
Well, it was a surgery. It wasn't a battle, you know.
Well, anytime you go into the knife, it's a battle.
You can't see me, but finally my eyes are pretty well clearing up. I have a little black and blue under one of my eyes. The other one seems to be kind of not as swollen. And the eye lift, somebody said, makes me look younger.
Oh.
Which means I must have looked older. You know.
So this was painful?
Well, it shouldn't be, right? Right? And I've told the story a dozen times on the show, but I'll tell it once again. They gave me light sedation because he wanted me awake so that I could move my eyes for him, like up and down, up and down, up and down, right? So he gave me light sedation. So that means that when he stuck the Novocaine into the eyelids, I could feel it.
Mm.
Oh, wow. You know, so why are you even sedating me? You know, so... that it was, and then he said to me, "Well, you know," he says, "we may have to go back in and do one of the eyes again because I didn't get it just like I wanted it because you were fidgety." I'm thinking to myself, "You're giving me really no sedation to speak of, and you expect me not to be a little edgy?"
Yeah, God.
You know, put me out completely. Then I will be yours. Okay. So don't blame me because you didn't give me enough juice.
Yeah, that's not a good answer from a doctor. He's
Well,
like
here was
blaming you.
Here was the best thing from the doctor that I got. Okay, this is the best one. During the operation, I said, "How's it going?" Because I'm, you know, it's not pleasant. He goes, "Shut up! I'm trying to work."
Wow.
A great bedside manner. But he's a good doctor. He did a great job on me. I mean, I look at it and I'm going, gee, I can't even see where he did anything now, you know. But I have to keep putting salve on it and do things like that. So, it's still that way. But
well, that sounds like a very sensitive area to have anything done. Jesus.
Yeah. But... You know who this guy is? I shouldn't be saying this really. Well, it doesn't matter. Who his brother-in-law is? Stephen Mnuchin. Do you know?
Oh, God.
You know that name?
The finance guy.
Yeah. He was the Trump's what do you call it? Money guy. Whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Secretary of Finance. That was it. Okay. And you know what he did before that? He produced the Wonder Woman movie.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. How you went from producing movies in Hollywood to being, the Secretary of Finance. And he must have kissed Trump's ass a lot. Okay? Because he was there for almost the whole time, and most people weren't. With Trump, he was firing him every other week. So, that's that. So, but how's your health? How's your well-being?
Well, speaking of, I just had yesterday. I got my eyeball measured for the cataract surgery, so I'm getting closer.
They measured your eyeball?
You look in something, and I don't know, I don't know what they're looking at, but they said they're measuring things.
So with the cataract surgery, do you have a little part of your eye that's kind of fuzzy, like in the center? Yeah, that's what it is. They just cut out the old lens and put in a new one. And by the way, you don't feel a thing, and it's simple. It used to be a very complicated process, but now it's cool. By the way,
I heard she's 15 minutes maybe.
Yeah. By the way, folks, welcome to our program here. We're always talking about how's your health. You remember when we were younger? What was the topic of conversation? So did you get laid?
Women or drugs?
Did you get laid recently?
That was it.
I haven't gotten laid in a week. That kind of discussion. And as you get older and older, dinner conversation becomes, so what kind of insurance do you have?
Insurance.
Yeah. Oh, you're having cataract surgery. I see. Okay. But that's what happens when you get older, folks. I'm sorry. You're listening to an older guy, talking to another older guy. Not as old as I am, but older.
Yes, nature's slow assault on your body.
Yeah, you're what now? 66, is it?
68.
68. Okay, so you're getting Social Security.
Yeah. Oh, I took that early. Yeah.
You took that
Why
early.
Not, yeah.
What, when you were 62?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did it too. I needed it, so.
I didn't figure I'd live this long, so get it while you can.
Yeah. So so we should just do a show where we only allow people on who are on Social Security. That's what I should do.
The Weezers.
Yeah. I mean, I know that I don't think there's a younger person that listens to this show. It seems almost incredible to me that any younger person would. Why? What's the subject matter here that seems to...
We've got bad demographics.
It seems to appeal to you. So you've been working at all? I mean, the things are lightening up in California a little bit, so...
A couple of gigs here and there. I got 3 at the end of the month, so we'll see how those go. I'm so rusty, I'm afraid to get on stage, but...
people don't understand that about comedians. They go, oh, well, they just get up there and they do the jokes. Oh, well, there's COVID, so they weren't able to work for a while, but then all of a sudden you get to go back on stage and you just do it. Sometimes you can't remember half your act.
No, and I thought I was the only one. It's pretty common, so...
Yeah. I mean, folks, it's one of those kind of things that if you don't use it, you lose it.
Mm-hmm. Someone said that Richard Pryor, after that fire incident, it took him a year to get back to normal on stage.
Yeah. Well, of course, he also had a tragic kind of situation. You were just stuck indoors because of COVID.
We were pretty much in prison. He was on fire.
Well,
so.
You must be happy because out in California, the COVID rate, the rate of infection is the lowest in the country.
It is, yeah. It seems like it's dissipating everywhere, though, isn't it?
Yes, but we have winter coming on. So we don't know. I mean, when they say it's dissipated among the people who've had the vaccination. But among the unvaccinated, it's still a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I, of course, I got my third shot.
Jesus.
Yeah, I got my third shot. I'm glowing in the dark now. Yeah, and I'm not even supposed to get it because I took Moderna. But up at my Rite Aid, they said, we give the third shot for Moderna too. Hell with it, So we're all zippity doodah ready to go, So, and
we'll live to be 100.
Yeah, right. At this rate, I'm lucky I'm going to live till next week. Okay. Here we go, folks. More old people stuff. So I take this drug. Okay, it's called pregabalin. It's a Jerry Lewis drug. Pregabalin, and it's a neuropathy drug. And what it does is it like deadens something, I don't know. But it helps with my neuropathy in my feet. See, I'm old enough to have neuropathy, folks. I'm old enough to have neuropathy. So I take this drug, but the trouble with it is it makes me bump into walls the next day. And also I forget stuff. Like I have stuff here that I do on the computer that I just do as a matter of rote. Like here I'm doing you, and I have to start the recorder and so on. And when I've got this drug in me, I start forgetting how to do all that. You know, I have to think for a second. How do I do that again? Where is that? You know, so I'd like to stop taking that drug, so I haven't taken it for a couple of days, and I felt like crap yesterday. So last night when I went to sleep, I took a Xanax, which then put me to sleep, and today I'm a little groggy, but I don't feel weird from that, not using that drug. But if I don't use the drug, my feet hurt. If I use the drug, my feet don't hurt as much. And so, but then it also makes me wonky, and I can't remember stuff and things like that. So what's the payoff here? You know, what's the trade-off? I mean, you know, there are no drugs that are really good for you.
No, there's always a side effect.
You know what my friend Shecky said he did? He was up to about, I don't know, 5 pills or something a day. One day he just said, fuck it, and he stopped taking them.
Oh, okay. Good. I know some people take 20 a day.
Yeah, but he doesn't take them. He just doesn't take them anymore. And he said he feels better, you know. But he goes to his doctor and they go, oh, your cholesterol's a little high. Well, fuck you, you know.
That's the way I feel.
You know, I don't know that I don't know that taking all these pills, and I take about 10 pills, if you include vitamins, okay, every day, all right? And I don't know if I didn't stop them tomorrow, so my cholesterol goes up. So what? I don't care, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, you don't have a history of heart attack in your family, so I wouldn't worry about it.
No, my father had an angina.
Acute?
A very cute angina. No, he had angina, but that's not deadly, you know. So, what the hell, you know? I just want to. Maybe I should just stop taking all those drugs and be happy.
I think Shecky's onto something.
I mean, I'll go to the doctor and he'll go, boy, your cholesterol's off the charts. Good. I don't care. It's probably those steaks I've been eating, you know? I mean, how much do we have to watch out for ourselves until life becomes completely boring?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, for instance, what's bad for you that you wouldn't give up? Something you ingest or whatever.
Diet Coke.
Diet Coke isn't that bad for you. It's better than regular Coke with all the sugar.
Well, the chemicals and
you know what I've started doing? I used to suck Diet Coke down like there was no tomorrow, right? And then I started Snapple and mixing it with the Diet Coke. But then I discovered at Costco they have this sparkling seltzer, sparkling water in flavors. And I take that, and it's like drinking water, and it's quite good for you. So
I should try that.
That's all I drink exclusively, So, do you go to Costco, by the way? Are you?
Don't you have to be a member?
Yeah.
I'm not buying things in bulk, so I don't.
Well, don't you? Well, yeah, but there's certain things you can buy in bulk that you will never, you will run out of them. And that's like toilet paper, paper towels. Those are things that you eventually will get through. I don't care if you went out and you bought 10,000 rolls of toilet paper. Eventually, one day you go to the closet and go, we're all out of toilet paper, you know?
And they're starting to have shortages of that again.
Yes, there's shortages of that. There's shortages of everything because all those container ships are being stacked up outside the bay, I guess, in your case.
Yeah, but what's the reason for this? I can't get a good answer.
There isn't really a good answer. I think part of the problem is trucks. There aren't enough truck drivers to unload the stuff. I don't know if any of that makes sense to you. But we can talk about this next time, actually.
Yeah.
The next time we talk to Larry Bubbles Brown. Thank you, Larry.
Thanks, Alex.
Okay, bye.
This is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network, now in its 7th year. Talk like you've never heard it before.
Yeah, that's Bubs, and Bubs will be with us again next week, again, you know. And we're here for our 3rd night in a row. Isn't that amazing? We actually did 3 nights in a row, folks. And I'm happy about that. I'm delighted about that. But next week, I think I'm going to do 3 nights too. I'm going to do Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. The reason I'm doing that is I've been a little bit on the tired side, and I'm still trying to kind of get it together. I think what happened was having this operation really took more out of me than I thought. You know, I thought, it's a short operation. I'll come in, I'll leave, and that'll be it, and we'll be fine. And no. And so I'm still kind of tired. So I think we're probably, I'll let you know on the Facebook page if we're going to do a show on Tuesday. But also, people for some reason have not been calling as much as they were. And not as many people are listening because Alex had the audacity to take some time off because he was having his eyes worked on and he was sick and one thing and another. But here I am. I'm back with you. Once again, folks. Well, there are a bunch of people waiting to come on right now, so I'm going to admit them all. And let me see here. Hey, guess who's here again tonight? This is wonderful. This is worth it all. Terry is with us, ladies and gentlemen. She is connected to her audio. She's done it all, ladies and gentlemen. Let me admit Vernon Nunn here. He's coming on. And hello, Josh Wheeler. How are you? And
good. How are you?
Then what is the T-shirt today that Charlie is wearing? That's a horrible idea. What time? Where did you get that? Where do you find these things?
I'm a T-shirt, whatever. I find T-shirts everywhere.
A T-shirt aficionado.
Yeah.
It's great. And hello, Vernon Nunn. Where are you? You still in Arkansas?
Virginia.
Virginia. Wherever was it? You're just down there in good old hick country, aren't you?
Oh, it's definitely Trump country.
Yeah. Check in here with Terry. She lives in Wyoming. You want to know Trump country? Yeah.
Yeah, I think back in 2016 when we were coming here, there's the last leg of the travel is about 9 or 10 miles after you get off the interstate.
Yeah.
And I think during that time we saw nothing but Trump signs in people's yards.
Oh,
in 2020 we saw one non-Trump sign.
One non-Trump sign.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, let me ask both of you. Well, I'll ask Terry first. But in Wyoming, if when the whole presidential election was going on, did you have a Biden bumper sticker or did you not do that?
No.
Why? Because they would have keyed your car, right?
Yeah,
No, I don't.
Not a good idea.
Isn't that terrible, though, that we have to say in a country where we believe is the home of the brave and home of the free and whatever it is supposed to be, and you can't put a bumper sticker on your car without fear.
This was a very Democratic county up until recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I know people who sit in elected positions that have had to change party affiliation.
Oh, really?
Because these people vote tickets, or just straight Republican or what have you.
Wow.
The most Democratic counties are Teton County, where billionaires have kicked out the millionaires, and then, over in Laramie, where the University of Wyoming is, that's pretty Democratic too.
Wow.
Yeah, I think in Teton too, you have a lot of transplanted people that work for like the Park Service and Fish and Wildlife. I mean, there's a lot of government people that live in Teton County that necessarily are not from. Probably most of them are not from Wyoming.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure. I spent a lot of time. I spent a lot of time out there, and I know that's kind of what I've seen.
Yeah. Well, and then you get a lot of celebrities and what have you that have second homes.
Oh yeah, right. In Jackson, sure.
Yeah. It's also because we have a summer place or little lot about 50 miles south of Jackson. We got their newspaper, and it's the only place I'm aware of where the governor will go stand on a street corner and talk to people.
Oh, really?
None of these politicians come to Sweetwater County, where I live, or other communities and what have you. Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. Now, is he a Republican or Democrat?
Oh, Republican.
Oh, so he could walk out on the street and talk to these people, and they love him.
Well,
right?
he goes and he stands on street corners up in Jackson, where those politicians never do that in other communities that I'm aware of.
Right.
Certainly not the one I live in.
Yeah. So, what is? Do you know what the makeup is of the population of Wyoming when it comes to right and left?
I think it was like maybe 22% voted Democratic, and the rest was Republican or Libertarian.
Libertarian. Oh, I hate libertarians.
Yeah, I looked at their electoral.
The biggest friggin' hypocrites on the planet.
What, the libertarians?
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, well, they don't know what they want to be. That's the problem, It's almost like being Swiss. Yeah. Swiss.
I feel fortunate living in one of two Democratic strongholds in the red state of Kentucky, because Jefferson County and Fayette County are heavily Democratic. They go like 60% Democrats during most elections.
Now, I remember when I was coming back from Florida, which was a horrendous experience, which I would tell you about, but I don't want to relive. We came through Kentucky, and I was just amazed how beautiful Kentucky is. It's gorgeous. Am I right or wrong?
Oh yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and a lot of horse farms. Passed a lot of horse farms, and I think the grass actually looked blue.
Kentucky bluegrass.
It's actually a species of grass called bluegrass.
Yeah, and is it blue in color, or is it just the way it hits the
kind of a greenish blue? Yeah.
Really? Wow. Okay, well, we'll have to find out exactly where you're living, and that's where we'll move to. But anyway.
And Ryan Paul's one of your senators?
Oh, yeah. Tell them who the other one is.
And the other one is?
Oh, the other one is Mitch McConnell.
Isn't that a wonderful place to be?
Or as we call him, Mitch McChinless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why? I keep asking.
I'm trying to understand why people buy that bullshit.
Yeah, they buy that bullshit because it's bullshit they buy. I mean, it's amazing to me that a guy like Rand Paul can even get elected by even a halfway intelligent person.
Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz.
He came in on the Tea Party. He was first elected when
Barrasso.
the Tea Party came in.
Yeah.
So Barrasso.
Yeah, and
although he was appointed originally.
Now Cruz came in on the Tea Party, didn't he?
He came in. 2012. Yeah.
And isn't it terrible now? Well, it isn't terrible, but isn't it a shame to say he got elected because he was part of the Tea Party, and now the Tea Party really virtually doesn't exist, does it?
Right. Never hear about him anymore.
It lasted for about a minute and a half, and that was it. you know.
Well, you know what that's
Wasn't
set
that
for,
a
right?
Koch brothers creation, the Tea Party?
Yeah.
I mean, from what I've read,
But
I think
the Koch brothers, in their final sense of moment of wisdom, did not support Trump. You know, that was
not
going
overtly,
going
but
too
I
far
think
for
their
them.
organizations funneled money to them.
No, supposedly he wanted money from them, and they wouldn't do it. They didn't
They
like
wouldn't do it.
They didn't like him. Am I right, Vernon? You're kind of aware of this, aren't you?
Yeah, they've kind of dropped off of the political scene, concentrating more on getting people that think more libertarian into universities.
Yeah.
They donate a lot of money to a University of Florida, but then they said anybody that you hire in your economics department, we've got to approve them.
Well, one of the two libertarian brothers died, right?
Yeah, David Koch died.
Yeah. They controlled a lot in this country for a while. I mean, it was amazing how they did, you know.
Oh, I think their dark money packs and what have you control a lot of things in this country.
Yeah, well, I mean, but we've got a lot of left wing money too. There's a lot of hot left wing money. You got,
but that's good money.
Well, yeah, you know, they're spending it wisely.
You hope.
What you're saying is they're spending it wisely. Who's the right wing big money guy? Who I believe had something to do with me getting fired over at Sirius XM. Come on, what's his name? Josh. You know, the big money guy, the left wing big money guy.
Rush Limbaugh?
No,
left wing.
What?
Left wing or right wing? You said right wing.
Left wing.
Soros?
Are you talking about Soros?
Soros. Yeah.
George Soros.
Yeah. I think he had something to do with me getting let go at Sirius XM.
How so?
Because I didn't like Media Matters. I didn't like them as an organization, and he was a big contributor to Media Matters.
Yeah.
And when I got fired, who did they put in my place? The guy who was one of the guys who ran Media Matters. See? Yeah.
They just wanted to get rid of you.
Well, I'm difficult to have around, you know.
And they changed what the channel. It used to be Sirius Left, and they started calling it Sirius Progress.
Yeah, and I always hated that term progressive. It's
I
kind of.
remember the day you didn't show up because I went on satellite radio just to have something that was liberal.
Yeah. I think I was a little too liberal for them in that my stance on things was a little bit. It didn't go along. I was critical, for instance, of Obama.
Yeah.
I wasn't against Obama, but I was critical of him. I didn't think that everything he was doing was terrific. And those were in the days where if you were going to be the left-wing radio station, you've got to go rah, rah, rah for Obama. And come on, the kid was basically a punk kid who came in without any real experience and learned that it was on-the-job training. Yeah. And so he had every right to be criticized and questioned as to what he was doing and so on. But I think that got Soros's butt in an uproar. But anyway, I'll never know why I'm not there anymore. I have no idea, you know.
Never paying you too much?
That had a little to do with it, just a little. And it wasn't a lot of money. I mean, you know. But it was a little bit of money. And but it was more than a lot of people who had the same job I had. And then we had Albert, and Albert was the highest paid producer, I think, outside of Howard's producer in the whole building. So you know that you know that's what.
And deservedly so.
And yes, because we did a damn fine job of it.
Right?
Yeah. Right. Well, you know, I just didn't like doing. I didn't like doing talk shows that were kind of spreading a company line. Like, I can't stand MSNBC.
Me either.
Because every time I tune them in, it's just they have no. They're just trying to be so perfectly progressive, okay, that they don't ask the hard questions of people. and you really should.
Do any of them do, though?
MSNBC is not progressive.
Well, they consider themselves to be to the left.
Well, Nancy Pelosi considers herself progressive, but she's not.
Yeah, well, a lot of people. Progressive, what does that term mean exactly?
When I think progressive, I think Bernie Sanders.
No, I think socialist.
AOC.
OAC?
AOC.
AOC. I don't know. All these
We know
letters,
what you mean.
all these letters. Yeah. Anyway,
Alexandra.
is she a progressive? Does she call herself a progressive?
Yeah.
Very much so, yes.
Yeah.
Because to begin with, I always called myself a leftist because, number one, it pissed off the right-wingers. And secondly, I called myself a leftist because I wasn't going to make any bones about it. I'm a progressive. Well, what's that? Well, that's kind of a nice leftist.
Well, it pissed off the liberals, too.
Oh, I pissed off.
It pissed off the liberals,
Oh,
too.
I hate liberals. I really hate liberals. My old friend Phil Oakes years ago said that a liberal is somebody who's 10 degrees to the left in good times and 10 degrees to the right when it affects him personally.
Sounds like a libertarian.
That sounds like a libertarian.
Yeah. I don't know what libertarians are. I guess they're the political version of Unitarians.
No.
Although I bet
Libertarians
All the benefits of Social Security and all that other stuff, but they don't want to pay the taxes for it.
Exactly. They don't think that government has any role except for the military.
we have Kevin here. Hello.
And giving them money personally.
Yeah. Hello, Kevin.
Hey, Alex, how are you?
How do you describe yourself politically?
Independent.
No, just independent, right?
Yep.
I was an independent, and I registered as independent, was very proud of that. I am now an independent, right? And I went, what does that mean? That means I can only vote once a year instead of twice. And I had no say-so in the primaries.
Yep.
So I figured I better go back to being so I went back to being a Democrat, right? So then I registered, and then I went over to the polling place, and they said, we don't have your name here. You'll have to do a provisional ballot, which is a ballot you fill out, and they look at it later and say, do we like you or don't we like you? So I voted, and then I found out they didn't accept my provisional ballot. So what the hell did I become a Democrat for?
Why? Why didn't they accept it?
They didn't accept it. I don't know. They just wrote me a note and a letter and said your provisional ballot wasn't accepted.
Oh, we can do it. We can change. You can change here in California like you change your underwear.
Oh, really? How do you do it?
Yep.
How do you do it in California?
You just go up there and say, I want to change.
Where do you go? I mean, at the polling place?
Yeah. We'll change you right at the polling place. We'll change you right there at the desk. And then you can change right back the next election.
What prevents people, though, from the opposite party of going in and trying to screw up your election? In other words, saying, I'm a Democrat now and I want to vote for, and then they vote for somebody who's...
Some states have open primaries.
You're just changing your party.
Yeah.
You can still be a Democrat and vote Republican, too, so it doesn't really matter.
Well, how do you...
but some states have
It's
open
just with an
primaries.
independent... And in certain elections, you can cross-vote as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, how do you people feel about this? And I've argued this for the longest time. I think we should do away with primaries. And the reason we should do away with primaries is the only function they serve is to pick a candidate for a party. And quite frankly, they should have, if they want to hold a primary, they should have to pay for it. Because
I agree.
it's simply, the main election, the whole game should be, hey, go pick your standard bearer, and you pick your standard bearer, and you pick your standard bearer, and whatever. You run against each other and have a good time. But where you're going to decide who's going to run is at the convention, right? Don't have us spend millions upon millions of dollars in these primaries that only serve a function of helping the parties. Yes, Charlie.
Well, I kind of disagree with that, because if the party had to pay for the primary, they have to come up with the money from somewhere. Where are they going to get the money? From corporations. That's going to make them even more beholden to corporations and the super rich. I don't want that. I want them less. I don't want. I want the public to be paying for the primaries, for the elections, for everything. Then they're beholden to the public.
Yeah, well, I think that I disagree with you, because I say that, people are going to pay for elections either way, I mean, whoever goes out and has enough money to get the right amount of publicity probably is going to get the nomination or whatever. So I don't know. I just see the primaries as a useless exercise. It costs us a lot of money. I mean, it costs a fortune to hold a primary. And by the way, prior to 1935, maybe 1940, they didn't have primaries. So what is it you're eating there, Charlene?
Like a fruit ice pop.
A fruit ice pop. Okay.
Yeah, I'm having like a dessert treat for myself.
Yeah. Well, what Marjorie and I do every night is we share a keto caramel ice cream stick thing. And the reason we do it is, number one, it has only 2 carbohydrates in it. Okay, 2 net carbs of carbohydrates, and secondly, it tastes fucking great. I mean, it is just really delicious. I get it at Costco. So if you're ever at Costco going, and just buy a package of these keto. I bet you go back and buy them every time you're there. But anyway, so Josh, is there anything happening news-wise that because he's a big Supreme Court watcher and so on? What do you think is going to happen with the Supreme Court this time? There are a lot of big questions in front of
Oh yeah, too hard to tell. There's a lot of big cases probably this year coming up. Going to be probably one of the biggest ones in a long time. So might remake a few of our normal ways we live or whatever. I mean, that's going to be a possibility. I mean, I don't think we're going to have some kind of major radical shift or anything in 4 or 5 different areas. But
do you think
we might see something?
What do you think is going to happen with Roe?
Oh, it's gone.
You think so?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's really too hard to tell. I don't think it's nearly as given as as people are going to be led to believe by the media, who wants to sort of fuel that fire so they can talk about it for as long as possible. I mean, I just don't think it's as simple as that, I mean, I really don't. I mean, if people disagree, I can understand, but I don't, have it down like that for me. That's all.
But the Supreme Court let the Texas.
Yeah, Charlie has his hand up there.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Well, they cannot end Roe v. Wade unless they repeal the 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment says you cannot have involuntary servitude in the United States. And there's nothing more involuntary servitude than forcing a woman to have a baby that she does not want to have. That's the definition of involuntary servitude.
You think it is? I don't know that I agree with you on that. I mean, I'd like to believe that makes the case.
She's already said she doesn't want to do it. It can't be more involuntary than that.
Well,
but are they fighting it on that, or are they bringing up that?
I don't care how they fight it. It's in the Constitution. Somebody ought to fight it on that.
Let me argue with you only to this extent. I'm only being a devil's advocate here. Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm all for abortion. Okay, I'm all for retroactive abortion, especially with a guy like Donald Trump is concerned. But
or Greg Abbott.
Greg Abbott. Oh boy, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but you've been recalled. No, not as governor, as a human being. Okay.
He never was.
Can't somebody sue him for attempted murder? I mean, for what he's doing. I mean, some of the things.
Well, all of them. But I was listening to some program today, and they were really talking about in Texas that a rapist can basically pick the mother of his child.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because there's no recourse for her or for that woman other than to get out of the state or something. I'm sorry, Charlie, but I couldn't spend a penny in Texas. I
don't blame you.
Not going to happen, you know. But you know, if you look at it that way, but your servitude, you know, that's an interesting argument. I was thinking like Title IX. They have no laws. Like, I tried to get the state of Wyoming legislature to say, you want to, you know, take away a female's right to make a choice on her body, then the least you could do is make sure you collect DNA so that the fathers of these children are supporting them financially. No questions asked. And what
child supports is starting.
And I was basically told to get screwed. Yeah. I mean, just not even acknowledged.
What I find strange is that nobody is bringing up the fact that this Texas law puts the enforcement into the hands of individuals and individual companies, and instead of the state enforcing their own law. That is blatantly unconstitutional for a state to say, we're going to make this law, but we're not going to enforce it. We're going to let individual people enforce it by offering bounties.
Couldn't it
that
be,
is blatantly unconstitutional.
Yeah, but isn't it also? Aren't we opening the doorway for companies to come along and say, "Oh, we're going to be the catch you getting an abortion organization, and we're going to make our entire living out of getting the $10,000 for turning people in."
I imagine there are groups.
You know,
yes, doing that. Yeah.
Well, why don't you even hear about this in the media, though? You know, they're talking about, you know, trying to stay the law and all that kind of stuff. Nobody is talking about
part of the reason is
the enforcement thing is blatantly unconstitutional.
Part of the reason is they're too busy covering William Shatner's 11-minute ride for 2 or 3 hours
in the Dick Rocket.
Yeah, on the Dick Rocket. Jeez. You know. If I hear him talk about it one more time, you know, when I got up there, it was blue sky there and it was dark up there. That's what space is, you asshole. You know.
I asked Jost a question.
Yeah. Sure.
What other cases do you think are important? I mean, that might affect just regular folks. You know, the ones that pay taxes and all that good shit.
No, there were a few others. I mean, there's a gun control case that I think is up this term, and I can't remember the name, you know, of the two sides. But you know, I mean, it's going to be up, and you know, it's challenging some laws we've had for a while. You know, some precedent that we've had. And I mean, you know, that's something that a lot of people care about. I mean, even people who don't own weapons are just as passionately interested in that situation as people who do own them. You know, to go along with the Texas case and, you know, on the abortion rights deal. You know, there's one other I was reading about the other day, and now I can't even remember what it was, you know, that had some, I think it had something to do with labor and, you know, unionizing again. You know, we get one of those every 5 or 6 years that has the you know, the ability to maybe change, you know, some of that up. And, you know, a lot of people obviously care about that quite a bit, you know, so, but I don't, you know, and I at least heard someone this morning on MSNBC on Morning Joe. I was running a little bit late this morning, and I listened to a little bit of that. I think it was this Barbara McQuaid or someone that they have on there in the morning, who used to be a U.S. attorney. And she kind of said what I said, which was, you know, look, the Texas case is, you know, obviously going to be huge. It's going to be super important. But she was just urging people, you know, to understand that in her time as a U.S. attorney and as someone who, you know, had spent a lot of time with the Supreme Court, you know, she felt like whatever comes out of this was at least going to be a fair shake, that it wasn't right that a lot of people were just sitting around and they were just saying, oh, well, this this justice, this one were reported, appointed by a Republican, and these 4 here were so it's over, it's done. I mean, we should have a little bit more faith and a little bit more belief in our system.
Do we currently have a wild card on the Supreme Court right now? Somebody that you can't count on going right wing every time?
Roberts.
Think Roberts? Yeah.
Right.
There's been one or two cases.
That's obviously true. And I guess that's what I've said before was, what would be the number of times that the Chief Justice would surprise people from their preconceived notions before they would say, oh, I'm going to stop labeling him that way. Maybe he is legally open-minded. Would it be 3 times, 5 times, 10 times?
Mm-hmm.
If he does it the 20th time, will you then say, oh, well, gee, I guess I can consider him open-minded now? I don't know. To me, he's done it enough times a long time ago that I consider him open-minded. Now, if he does something tomorrow that I don't agree with, I would just say I didn't agree with him. Big whoopee. But I wouldn't, I'm not going to burn him in effigy over it. He said something that I didn't like, or he decided something in a way that I said, well, I don't think I view it that way. I think that's counter to what I've read in the notes of the convention or whatever, so I think he's open-minded. We can't count on him in this abortion case one way or the other. I think he's an open-minded person.
Roe is how many years old? About 40 years old?
Almost 50.
It was in 1973.
Yeah, 48 years.
Don't judges on the Supreme Court occasionally give great weight to precedent, to how long this thing has been a law already, and that they don't just vicariously say, well, I don't believe in abortion, therefore I'm getting rid of this, because it was something that's been law for the last almost 50 years.
Sure, they always do. I shouldn't say always, but a lot of them do. And I think they do in most all cases, and the thing about, the Roe situation is, I don't remember how long after, it was somewhere around 18, 20, 21 years. You had the second large case that came up, which was the Casey case. And, that was a case that was the first and really only real test of overturning it that has come before the court since the Roe decision.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was decided in a way that upheld Roe again. So you've had 2 major cases now that both, kept abortion rights alive in this country, as our precedent. So that's what I'm saying is an overturning of that would be a bit of a radical shift. Okay. And I just, I'm just saying that I don't think some radical shift is as given as some people would make it out to be, especially when a lot of the people that are telling you this have some sort of vested interest in getting you to believe that, such as raising money from you or getting you to join their organization or watch their channel or, vote a certain way or whatever. Some of the things they say are true or legitimate, or I would agree with them. But I think that they certainly exaggerate or blow it out of proportion in some, So I'm just saying I'm not all tied up in knots about it. And it's not just because I'm a man or whatever. I'm just saying I would honestly feel the same way if it were some sort of case that might involve my own personal well-being or health choices. I would be concerned. And when it was over, I might even be angry, but I wouldn't be as stressed out as some people are. That's all I'm
Charlie's
saying.
got his hand up. Charlie?
I have 2 daughters, and all I know is that Texas has a rate of maternal mortality in childbirth that's double the national average. And they're going to force women to complete pregnancies that they don't want to complete, even though they don't want to take care of the women. They give them no prenatal benefits. They do nothing to protect the women. And to me, that makes me mad. I don't want my daughters growing up in that situation.
Well, you know, I mean, here's the thing. I think that if the Supreme Court were to do anything about Roe, because of the way they're weighted, I think they would say it's up to the states. I think then you would find
that's
what it would do.
Yeah.
That's what an overturning of that ruling,
Yeah.
Would equate to. So
you die
there
in
would
Texas
be a lot
and
of
live in California.
yeah, there would be a lot of stuff that would come from the states after that. I mean, so
what I'm
just
saying,
because something has been legal precedent.
What I'm asking here is, if California say the Supreme Court says no, it's up to the states, let the states decide, and so California says okay, or they say Roe versus Wade, you can't have abortions. Abortions aren't legal. Could a state still do it anyway?
I think that it'd be
That's the way it was before Roe v. Wade.
Yes, that's what it will basically return to.
Yeah, but I mean, but if California suddenly said, but we're going to allow abortions in our state, doesn't states' rights have precedence over?
They do.
Well, no, we didn't have abortion in California when I was a kid growing up. I know because I had a pregnant girlfriend, and
right.
The only thing
Didn't
we could
New
do.
York, though?
What?
Didn't New York?
I don't think any
abortions?
state allowed abortion.
Some states did.
Yes.
Really?
That's why the rich women went to the states that gave abortions.
Well,
The poor women
no.
couldn't.
I think a lot of
Yeah,
rich.
I mean, you'll
you'll
basically see, you would see in many ways a return to state control of that sort of an issue. I mean, it would equate, no, I shouldn't say equate because that's a bad word for what I'm about to say with abortion, but it would be along the same legal terms as the state of Ohio saying you can get your driver's license at 16, but Indiana saying no, you can't get it till you're 17.
Right.
Yeah, but you don't die without a driver's license.
Well, correct. Like I said, I'm not saying equate. I'm saying legally you would see those type of differences. I mean, there are certain things you can do in the state that I live in, and you go to the next state and you can't. I mean, it just would devolve into something like that. I mean, but it's still going to take a radical shift, which I still think is just, I'm skeptical of that. I mean, sometimes the radical shifts are necessary, and we would like some of them. I mean, just because something has been law for a long time and the court has previously agreed with it, obviously, yes, does not mean it will remain that way. I mean, separate but equal was the law of the land for a very long time, and the court looked at it many times and said, no, we're good with that. No, we're good with that.
So let's bring
And
back
then
the
eventually there was a court that said, nope, sorry,
Yeah, but
we're not good with that, and all the people that came before us made a
But
mistake.
let me ask you this. Is it the reason why separate but equal got thrown aside and a newer, more modern law came into being was because times had changed? And that times dictate many times what the law is that comes out of the Supreme Court?
Well, right. I mean, is
that fair? I've often said if let's say, it used to be that if you smoked pot and they arrested you, you went to jail for 20 years. Well, what do you tell all those people?
Why only you do?
Yeah. What do you tell all those people who went to jail for 20 years for pot? They can go down to the local store and buy it now in New York City.
California too.
And does anybody get some money for having spent that time in jail? Because now it's one day it's legal, the next day it isn't. I don't understand that. No, that makes sense.
They don't even let them out of jail.
Is it not the reason this all keeps coming up is because of a religious movement also? I mean, what about the religious, the separation of religion and state?
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
the reason this stuff keeps coming up is because religion starts making a movement, and they all start talking about that stuff, and then it all starts coming about again.
But isn't our entire society dictated on some religious tenets in this country? I mean,
correct. Then it fades away, and everything's fine, and then all of a sudden, people start bringing that crap up again,
it always comes back to religion. And,
correct.
And anything bad in this world usually has to do with religion. I mean, come on, what's going on in Afghanistan right now? It's all religious. Okay?
Right. I mean, and those
religion.
you know,
It's about
and those
controlling
Wait a minute. Hold on a second.
Those
Gains traction
organizations
for a while, and then it gets knocked down in the courts, and it, you know, then the religion calms down again, and then somebody comes in like our previous leader and starts talking that stuff again, and everybody gets geared up again.
As we all know, he's a very
he starts getting strong again, and then it'll fade away again.
We all know what a religious guy Trump was.
He was not religious. He was just stirring up the religious right.
Yeah.
That's the whole issue. I mean, that's all it was. Is he made it look that way, and he was up top, so he got them all stirred up.
Yep.
And
look, those.
That's
I'm sorry. I thought it was. Go ahead, guys.
No, go ahead. I'm done.
I mean, you know, those organizations, you know, religious organizations, for example, are certainly a driving force of that. And look, they're very good at it. I mean, you know, I basically have a pretty good background in hardcore, you know, Pentecostal upbringing and religion. You know, I went to some parochial schools.
I was brought up Catholic.
I mean, I've been in churches where, you know, they run up and down the aisles and speak in tongues and all that kind of stuff. I mean, several years ago, I was in a church for something, and you know, the pastor was up there talking about his daughter, who's a nurse in the maternity level, and you know, and they had just delivered a baby, and they were talking, and he's just up there saying, "What a shame that, you know, if the mother had just changed her mind 15 minutes before, they could have just cut it out and threw it in the trash," which is garbage. That's not the law in Ohio. That's not the law anywhere. You know, but they can say that, and a lot of people, you know, I mean, it's just, there's so much just garbage that goes with it. I mean, it's just so fervent with some folks.
There've been some quiet people.
They're great at driving that message.
There've been some quiet people here tonight. Let's try to bring them into the conversation. Alan, what do you think?
About what?
About what we've been talking about.
California has you can get abortions here, and you can now buy marijuana. They're taking people,
and by the way, all of them at Safeway. So
yeah, they're taking people. You said that these people are in jail. California has just signed some legislature, the governor, that the people that are in jail, they're reversing their guilty charges for marijuana and making them not guilty, and if they're still in jail, letting them out and getting rid of the charges off their record.
Yeah. How about you, Jeff? Any thoughts on what we're talking about?
Well, as far as pot stuff, the laws in Connecticut have changed, and also in Massachusetts, because Massachusetts they sell it legally. But in Connecticut, you can have it, but you can't buy it there. So,
well, here in New York, you can have it now, but they haven't come up with the method for selling it. In other words, they got to figure out how to license it and how to make money out of it.
That's what Massachusetts is doing a very good job.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're going to be sitting around here waiting. I mean, I'll be at death's door before it's ever actually being sold in stores here, I bet you. Terry, and then Charlie.
In Wyoming, they have drive-through liquor stores. You can literally go up to a drive-through window and have them make you a drink to go.
Really?
But if you got caught with a joint, they could literally take your property, whether or not you were actually convicted. Now, would they actually do that? I don't know. It depends how much money you have and whether or not they like you. But that is the way that it is in Wyoming.
Really?
Sure.
Oh, yes. And the police go, oh, well, we don't want stoners driving. I'm going, if you don't want people impaired driving, shut the goddamn windows.
Actually, there's an argument, and
that's just bullshit.
There's an argument, and then I'll go to Charlie.
Excuse my language.
But there was a study in Oregon back in the 50s, I think, and the study they did was to see how if people could drive under the influence of marijuana, whether they were better at it or worse at it or whatever. And what they did was they took people who had never smoked pot. They took people who were experienced pot users, And they found people who were experienced pot users could drive perfectly well. Whereas the people who had never smoked are having a little bit of trouble because they were getting used to it. What happens is marijuana is one of the few drugs that we know of that you can compensate almost 100% for if need be. Okay? So if you say, hey, it's time to drive home now, I'm going to straighten my head out, you can straighten that out enough to drive. Now, I'm not going to tell people to do that because I don't want somebody to drive on pot, suddenly have an accident, kill his wife and family, and then sue me. Okay? So I'm just telling you what the Oregon study found out. So this whole attitude about, when people are high on pot, that goes back to reefer madness, for Christ's sake, Yes, Charlie, you had your hand up earlier.
Yeah, I was going to comment on what Alan said about the Californians just now. How long has pot been legal in California? But just now, there's
at least 10 years.
Letting the people out of prison that got sent to prison for marijuana possession.
Right, at least 10 years.
Yeah. In the other states, Colorado, Washington, none of those states have even considered letting the people out that already have been in prison for decades.
At least you don't go to prison. At least you don't go to prison for an abortion here.
Yeah.
So far.
And you can't have your neighbor turn you in for getting one.
That's right.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Because there's a $10,000 reward.
Oh, it's worse than that. It's $10,000 per complainant. They don't tell you that. You could have 100,000 people complaining, and each one of them gets 10 grand.
Didn't they say a lot of people were calling in and naming your governor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that from the state they get the 10 grand, or do they get to sue the person they think is helping or having the abortion or what have you, and try to get the money out of
helping or having the abortion?
Here's what's terrible.
It's not the state
that's why Planned Parenthood has not had an abortion since that law passed, because they couldn't afford all the court cases from all these idiots from all over the fucking country that would be suing them for 10 grand.
What is the story? What's the story with people getting? Now I forgot what I was going to say. Uber drivers getting busted for this, for taking people to an abortion.
Drive them to an abortion.
Yeah.
But Uber and Lyft have both said that they would compensate. They would cover the cost of any of their drivers that get sued for that.
Yeah.
I don't understand how a female would even live in Texas.
I don't.
Or Mississippi.
Well, maybe we can have.
Oh yeah.
But we have Jack Bishop here, and Jack Bishop, who just joined us, who does the show at midnight our time here. He can answer that question for you. Why would a woman want to live in Texas?
I'm going to have to ask my wife about that, because I don't really know.
Yeah,
I'm going to have to ask my wife, and she's from Oklahoma, and she moved down here, and I'm going to ask her, and I think I'll also ask some of my granddaughters and see what they say, because as far as I'm concerned, this state has gone so far backwards in the last 10 years that I'm ready to get out of here.
Wasn't it more when you and I lived in Houston together? Same time. We weren't.
Well, we didn't live together.
We didn't live together. Let's get that straight.
Oh, they finally
clarifying that, Jack.
I mean, we were just friends.
It's publicly known.
While it was extremely racist, and when we walked down the street with my wife and she was in the middle, people stared at us trying to figure out who she was with. And we loved driving him crazy that way. At least we didn't get shot for doing it. But the thing is that I don't remember whether it was leftist or right wing. I don't think it was. I think it was very much a Democratic state, wasn't it, at the time?
Even when I moved here, the majority of the elected officials were from the Democratic Party. But you see, you got to go back to Reagan for all of this nonsense that the Republican Party has become. Yeah. There's a guy named Richard Viguerie who drove the fundraising for the Republican Party starting in the 80s. And I had the dubious honor of interviewing him. And he said what they wanted a supportive base that would salivate on demand on what they said. They didn't want people to think about what was going on. They just wanted the folks to come in and vote for them the way they wanted them to vote.
Getting back to those days, I seem to remember it as being a democratic state. Now,
It
my question
was a
would
democratic
be,
state.
the people who were Democrats then, if they had lived today, would they suddenly be right-wingers instead of liberals?
Well, I think
because it's certainly not a democratic state now.
Well, here's what I always say. Democrats in Texas, when you and I lived here, and certainly when I came back here about 4 years later, were really Northeastern Republicans. They weren't West Coast Republicans.
Okay, yeah.
They were Northeastern Republicans. As a matter of fact, look who came out of the Northeast, moved to Texas, and became president.
Yeah.
You know?
Texas went 109 years with Democratic governors. 109 straight years.
And by the way, some of the most corrupt
Democrats.
By the way, in all deference to the fact that they were Democrats, they were some of the most corrupt governors in the history of the United States.
You never saw corrupt governors till you went to Tennessee and Louisiana.
Well, I don't think they were any more corrupt than Ma Ferguson.
Well, it depends on what you mean by corruption. You know,
I mean, the reason why, I'll tell you, the reason why the governor of the state of Texas right now doesn't have the power to commute death sentences, okay, is because of Ma Ferguson. She was so corrupt that she would take people who she knew just committed murder right there and then and pardon them. And so finally one day they said, now that Ferguson's out of here, we're not going to have this kind of crap going on anymore. So the governor in the state of Texas up until recently really didn't have a hell of a lot of power.
He still doesn't.
Yeah.
The lieutenant governor in this state is the guy with the power over legislation. Now, when I left here in '67, going to Tennessee, I saw corruption like I had not dreamed of till I married my first wife, and she told me about the corruption in Louisiana. And when I got to Tennessee, what was going on, they had a governor who was eventually sent to jail, I believe, for selling pardons. You got enough money? Give it to the governor, and he'll get a pardon.
Yep. So anyway, welcome to the new Texas.
What got my attention, and I'm going to get off of here in just a second. I want to say something about marijuana, besides the fact it's still pretty damn good in some places. Marijuana is the only known substance that will make college kids drive slow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you something about pot today, okay? Call me old-fashioned. I don't know, I love the sociability of rolling a joint and then passing it down the line to all your friends back and forth, right? Okay? That sociability is gone. What you've got now is passing a vape pipe back and forth.
Yep.
And it's something that doesn't smell or taste like pot. You know, anybody agree or disagree with me on that? How about Charlie? Are you a doer?
I have never smoked a vape pipe, so I have no idea what that's like.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is that these people, like Albert, comes up from Florida. They got the stores down there, right? He brought up the little gummies, and he brought up the capsules and a vape pipe for us, which I can't use it because it's just so harsh. Even a little bit just rips my throat apart. I'd just rather be able to roll a joint and smoke it. That was what a sociable thing that was.
Yep.
You know?
Purpose of marijuana was to get together with your friends, smoke a little, get loaded, and sit around and talk about shit that nobody understood.
You know, I
And eat
remember.
bear
I remember the day that I was sitting in my apartment. I always talk about this. Sitting on the floor, passing a joint back and forth with my then good friend P.J. O'Rourke, who was working over at the National Lampoon at the time. And as we're passing it back and forth, he says to me, he says, you know, someday when we're slightly older, this is going to be legal. I thought he meant like 10 years from then. It's like 40 years since we had that conversation. You know, it took us this long to realize that this is one of the most benign drugs ever created.
Well, here's the reason why it took so long. It's not the fact that it's benign. It's the fact that for so many people like me, for instance, I'm not the most sociable person when I get stoned.
Oh, I turn off.
I want to go in the corner and get small.
It's like a spigot. I just go into a little shell or whatever.
And I think,
Vernon, is this a topic that you are knowledgeable of? Although I didn't think so. A guy who knows more.
I only had marijuana once, and that was when I was a teenager, and I went somewhere with my cousin, and he knew some kids that had some, and we'd been drinking beer all night, and I was kind of sick at my stomach, you know, from drinking all the beer. I took 3 or 4 drags off that marijuana cigarette, man, and I felt a whole lot better.
I'll tell you, the only thing
the only time I ever experienced.
The only thing I use pot for is to go to sleep. If I can't go to sleep, I'll take a hit off of this vape, or I have 2 different vapes, or Marjorie will have a rolled joint, and I will take a suck on that, and that kind of puts me to sleep. You know, that's what pot does to me. It makes me drowsy. You know, so.
Probably most people.
I used to get stoned in San Francisco at certain musicians' apartments and houses, and I just wanted to lay on the floor and remember to breathe and chew the carpet.
Yeah. Well, you know. But in other words, in Wyoming, if I were to smoke a joint and the cops stopped me, I could get a whole bunch of time in jail, right?
Yeah, or they could literally take your property. I guess if
literally take your property. That's the part that really just rankles my ankles.
You've forgotten what it was like in Texas when you and I were both living here.
Oh yeah.
You know, I knew when I came back here, there was a guy that was an editor of a music magazine, and he got caught with a relatively small amount of dope, and he got a life sentence, for which he served 15 years.
Got to tell you a funny story. The first time I ever smoked pot, I was in Houston, Texas.
Wait a minute. That was the first time you ever smoked pot?
Yep.
Don't lie to me now, bro.
No. And Ronnie had a hairdresser, and this guy had pot. So she said, "You've never tried it?" Because she was a little more advanced than I was. And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, let me get some from him." And I said, "You know, the funny thing I've heard about this marijuana is, you know, you smoke it, and the next thing you know, you're going to want to try heroin." And she said, don't be ridiculous. So we go over to this guy's place, and he sells us a little bit of it, and we start smoking it on the way home, and halfway home I had to have her take over driving because I just was incapable of driving. And I said, "This is really good stuff. I enjoy this. This is terrific. And I don't feel like I want to go out and have heroin or anything like that." So I go back to this guy to get more. And he says, "Okay," and he says, "It'll be that much," and I pay him, and he hands me the little baggie of, I think he used to get an ounce of pot in those days for $15, right?
Yeah,
and
something
he says,
like that.
"By the way, if you want it, I've got heroin." And I went, maybe it's true, and I got the hell out of there, you know.
Well, the first time I smoked a joint, I was 18 years old. I was doing the all-night thing at a radio station in the Bay Area, and the guy on before me was some young kid named Sly Stone.
If you refer to Sly Stone one more time, Jack.
But he was responsible for introducing me to
I think Sly Stone's the only famous person he's ever known. Okay.
No, unfortunately, I knew James Brown too, and that's a completely
that was
that I never bring.
Alan, yeah.
Oh, I have smoked marijuana and I have drank alcohol. I've sold heroin, I've sold, cocaine and methamphetamine, but I never tried them.
What do you mean you sold them as a cop?
You're a cop.
Yeah, as a cop.
So it was a sting operation.
Yeah, but I never, because I'd smoked marijuana, I had the drugs in my possession. I never wanted to take them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sold them as a cop. I never sold them illegally.
Yeah.
I know it's bullshit in college.
Wait a minute. You're a cop and you're selling drugs, but you say that wasn't illegal for you to do that?
Not in California.
Wait a minute. Hold on a second. It's illegal to sell certain drugs in California. If you sell cocaine, cocaine's still illegal.
Yeah, not for limited immunity.
But not for a cop.
Were you undercover?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay, well, that's why it was legal.
Well, then you're a fucking slime bag, because what you were doing was entrapping people.
Well, no. So entrapment is real simple. You got to prove whose mind it was in. If I have drugs for sale, and Alex Bennett walks down the street, and I said, "Hey, would you like some of this?" And you go, "Wow, what is it?" And you say, "Oh, it's heroin." "Yeah, sure, I'll try it." That's entrapment. If some drug dealer approaches you or druggie and says, "Hey, you got any drugs for sale?" That's not entrapment. It was in his mind first, not the cop's mind. That's
so what did you do? Go around with amphetamines just in case somebody wanted to buy some?
Well, we would go out and target neighborhoods.
Did you ever feel guilty?
People,
did you ever feel guilty about busting people for drugs? Because quite frankly, I think every one of them should be legalized or medically approved. Okay,
medically approved. Some of them, yeah.
But I mean, I just think busting people for doing something like that is it's terrible.
Well, the war on drugs has not worked in this country, so we got to find a different route. Maybe, like you say, make them legal.
What would you say?
All we've got to do is what they did in Portugal.
Hold on a second. What were you saying, Terry?
I was agreeing, I think, with Jack. Whoever said it, I think they legalized all drugs in Portugal.
Oh, okay. I think they did in Spain too. I know they legalized pot years ago. Yeah. Because I was in Ibiza back in the 70s, maybe the 80s, and I went to this restaurant, and the person I knew there said, "You want to get high?" I said, "Sure." So he brought a joint out to the table of his restaurant and gave it to me and said, "Here, enjoy yourself."
Well, the only thing I regret about smoking marijuana is my dad didn't live long enough for me and him to smoke it together, because I found out my old man had been ahead back in the 30s.
Well, I had a friend who went home to his father, and he said, "Dad, I'd like you to do something with me. Why don't you try a joint with me?" And his father said, "Okay." And he said, "Now here's how you do it." And he showed him how to do it. And then you puff in on it and you hold it in. And so his father does it and he does it. And they were sitting there both in two big chairs. And finally, he looks over at his father and he says, "Well, Dad, what do you think?" He said, "Hasn't changed since I was a kid."
Well, it's kind of like what happened with me and my oldest grandson.
Mm-hmm.
His folks got bent out of shape because the kid got caught with a little marijuana on him, and he was like 19, and so he calls me up on the phone and says, "Hey, and I said, Mitch, let me tell you, when your dad was your age, he was smoking marijuana. When I was your age, I was smoking marijuana. When my father, your grandfather, was our age, he was smoking marijuana, and great-grandpa grew marijuana on the farm, and I got a little touch of glaucoma, so the next time you come down here to Texas, you bring some marijuana, and we'll get stoned together."
Okay. Anyway, hey, listen, you got to go because you got to
go do a show.
Yeah.
See you in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, and I got a bunch of people I have to say goodbye to. So, let me see here. I guess, anybody have anything to say? Charlene, you've been very quiet tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm trying to stay out of trouble.
Stay out of trouble? Well, you've been just fine. And I always love seeing Vernon on the show because he's got such a lovely background there. That's out of a hotel room, is it? Or is it a lodge? Or what are you, renting a house?
Yeah, it's a condo.
It's a condo. And
Nice dated wallpaper.
what is it? No,
1970s.
Yes,
This was
dated
built in the
wallpaper.
70s.
Oh, is it? Oh,
It still looks okay to me.
no, it's,
but,
it's
you know.
not hideous wallpaper.
Yeah,
For that
there's
we-
a stone fireplace over there
Oh,
too.
wow.
Wow.
For that we have
You
to
gonna make pizzas?
For that we have to go to for just bad wallpaper. We've got to go to what's his name?
Tony.
Tony. Yeah, that's the most hideous wallpaper of all time. In fact, well, it's a little too late for you to put it in your background there, Alan. But
There you
there
go.
we go. That's the hideous wallpaper.
Just for you.
That is just super hideous.
Actually, it's better looking in the picture, whoever took the picture, than it looks like it's horrible in Tony's house.
Well,
You've
Tony
improved it.
doesn't turn the lights on that much anymore, so you don't see it like that because that was taken. I think it was one night when he was on, and then he moved out of the picture for a couple of minutes. Somebody took that, and then
Ray Rinaldi.
Ray Rinaldi did it. Yeah, is that where it started?
And then Phil got it from him.
And one night we all had the same background. Yeah. Anyway, hey, good having you here again, Terry. You know, I mean, you're terrific.
Fun.
You're just terrific. You know, and plus, you know, we like to bring some sanity to your life there in that state, right?
Yeah, it's tough living.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of tough in Texas too, but at least these
Yeah,
guys.
yeah. It's not quite as bad as Texas.
Thank you so much. So thank you, Terry. I really appreciate it. Please keep calling. We love having you here. And same thing with you, Charlie. Nice that you weren't able to play baseball the last couple of times.
Hurricane Pamela.
Hurricane Pamela.
Then
Josh,
water to California.
Josh, always great to hear your musings on the Supreme Court. And Vernon, thank you. Thank you, Charlene. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Jeff. And thanks, of course, to our old friend Kevin as well for being here tonight. That's it. Okay. I'll see you all later. Why don't you all kind of wave goodbye, and I'll wave goodbye at you. Okay? There they go, folks. There they go. They're leaving us slowly but surely.